And I don't care what story I'm talking to you about or talking to anybody about. What I've always done when I get in trouble, when life comes down hard on Marty, what Marty does is Marty goes back to AA full force. Sometimes I'll cut down to 3 or 4 meetings a week, but when something like this happens to me, I go back up to 10 to 14 meetings a week, and I just go to a lot of meetings and get some of that good mojo rubbed off on me one more time.
Well, hello, friends of Bill W. and other friends. You have landed on Sober Speak. My name is John M. I am an alcoholic, and we are glad you are all here, especially newcomers. Newcomers, that is, both to recovery as a whole and newcomers to this podcast. Sober Speak is a podcast about recovery centered around the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. My job here on Sober Speak is simple. My job is to provide a platform to the amazing stories of recovery all around us. Consider Sober Speak, if you will, your meeting between meetings. Please remember, we do not speak for AA or any 12-step community. We represent only ourselves. We are here to share our experience, strength, and hope with those who wish to come along for the ride. Take what you want and leave the rest at the curb for the trash man to pick up. Greetings from Studio AA, deep in the heart of Texas. That was the voice of Marty S that you heard at the beginning of this episode, and you are going to hear so much more from Marty, and you're so going to enjoy that in just a moment. But first things first, on this here episode number 425 of Sober Speak, this episode is made possible by Anthony, David, and Kate. And so you say to yourself, what exactly did Anthony, David, and Kate do? Well, they swung by our humble little website, www.soberspeak.com. They clicked on the little yellow donation tab and they made a contribution. So thank you so much, Anthony, David, and Kate. This here episode is coming right out to you'uns. All right, everybody. So we have quite a bit of listener feedback this week, so I'm going to split it up a little bit. I want to read you an email that I received on the front end here, and then we'll get right into Marty S's episode. So the email I received is from Robert. Robert writes in, and the subject line is captive but set free. Robert says, It is true that those who lack a purpose in life will seek pleasure. My name is Robert O., and I'm fortunate that my addiction to alcohol led me to my incarceration in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice instead of the alternative. In my case, the alternative could have been death. By the grace of God, I was introduced to your podcast, John, while I was incarcerated at the Holiday Unit in Huntsville, Texas. Don't let the name fool you. He says, it was not a holiday, laugh out loud. And he says, while going through this ID facility while caged up in a G4 unit, my escape from my environment was your podcast, John. This 16-month journey from Huntsville to Bryan, back to Huntsville, and finally to Dallas, Texas, gave me ample time to reflect on my life. Before my incarceration, my life was crashing out due to my alcohol use, and everyone was aware of it besides me. The rampant drug and alcohol use reaffirmed that even in confinement, you still had a choice of whether or not to take that first drink or drug. The death and overdose of some due to fentanyl kept me more planted in my recovery. This was hard for me to witness, for I work in healthcare, and my reaction was to help. It's crazy how the spirit of alcohol overwhelms the mind to where careers are jeopardized. It does not judge. I have been through the AA doors since 2017 when my uncle took me to a newcomers meeting, but finally, my fourth DWI led to prison time. I have experienced so many, quote, not yet, unquote, moments in my life, supplemented with many reprieves. I had not yet been to prison, but my actions led to the existence of this. Truly, all 400 plus hours of your podcast gave me sanity. When common sense became uncommon, I would root myself into my AA book, prayer, and your podcast, Sober Speak. I learned that when I stop doing the little things that matter, they accumulate and become bigger and uncontrollable situations. I'm learning that forgiving myself, addressing past traumas, and dealing with issues of post-acute withdrawal syndrome will keep me alive. During my completion at the TDC DWI program, I learned that it can always get worse. I heard horror stories and saw living examples of persons serving time due to alcohol. Thank you again, John, for your podcast. It helps me to remember that destruction leads to construction. You save lives, John. It is my responsibility to seek help among groups like the Primary Purpose Group in Arlington or the Grave Street Group in Mansfield, Texas. When the life starts falling into place, the 5 Alive becomes a minimal routine in my life. Thank you, John, for being a stable vessel for all those in need for all those in need to board when the waters aren't calm in life. Good way to put that. May God bless you, John, and increase the reach of your streaming podcast tenfold. And I will see you at a meeting in Frisco in the near future. Godspeed, John. Robert. Well, Robert, thank you so much for writing in, my friend. Sometimes the podcast gets a little overwhelming for me in terms of time, just in terms of time. And there are weeks where go by and I think, okay, I'm just going to do it another week and then we'll see how it turns out. But it's when I get letters like this, that gives me the, it gives me the motivation I need to move on. And before I record these episodes, I generally speaking will say a prayer, and I put my head on the mic sometimes I put my arms up in the air, but I picture people who are listening to this. Sometimes I picture people who are incarcerated, like yourself. Like yourself was. Sometimes I picture people who are working out in the gym. Other times I see people who are on a plane. Other times I see people who are falling asleep at night. Other times I see people that are out walking with pods in their ears. And I just I'm grateful for every one of you out there that are listening to this, and you come in, you have so much you could do with your time, and you come in to listen to my silly little podcast, and it means the world to me. And I love you guys. I love you very much. And once again, Mr. Robert, thank you for writing in, and I hope I really hope that we can see each other at a meeting over here in Frisco very soon. I would love to put my arms around you and give you a big hug. Thanks for writing in. All right, everybody. Now it's on to our featured guest of the day, and his name is Mr. Marty S. Marty lives in Buckeye, Arizona. The name of this episode is Good Mojo. Marty has been sober for 47 years. Yes, you heard me right. 47 years. He has a ton of experience, strength, and hope. In this episode, Marty addresses or talks about or discusses, however you want to say it, his stint in the United States Navy, his heart condition, and how he has to deal with that on a consistent basis, the process of giving a talk at the International Convention in Vancouver and what that was like, attending underground meetings in Iran, getting sober at 15 years old and what that was like, speaking at high schools in his area, sponsorship, the guy who borrowed his blue Camaro in sobriety and all the fun that ensued after that. We obviously talk about good mojo and Alcoholics Anonymous, what that means, and he also addresses his week from hell at 31 years sober, and much, much more. Without further ado, I present to you Mr. Marty S., and we will have plenty more listener feedback at the end of this episode. Enjoy, Marty. Okay, everybody, so today we're sitting here with Mr. Marty S., and I'm going to go ahead and set this up a little bit more in a moment, but Marty S., why don't you please go ahead, introduce yourself, give your sobriety date if you wish, and let people know where you live in this great land of ours, please.
Great. Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me to your podcast. My name's Marty, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is November 10th of 1977. I live in Buckeye, Arizona. I have a sponsor. His name's Carl M. He's in Covina, California. And I'm just happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Good to have you. 1977. So help me with the math there. How many years is that?
That's 47. I'll be 48 in November.
That's great. That is great.
And I'm not that old, John. I just want to let you know. I got sober at the age of 15. So
Did you really?
I got sober at 15. I'm 62. I will turn 63. And then 12 days later, I will turn 48.
Wow. That's really cool. That is really, really cool. So, just backing up here a little bit, yeah, as you said, you have a sponsor. His name is Carl M. That's where I actually got your name from. Carl's been on the podcast several times. We absolutely love Carl out there in Covina. How did you and Carl come across each other?
Man, I can remember the day I first saw him. I heard him speak at a meeting in the San Fernando Valley. And this is, let's see, this would be 40 years ago. No, it can't be 40 years ago. I would say it'd be 34 years ago.
Okay. So, and what was that meeting like? What was going on?
Well, it was a pretty active group in the San Fernando Valley. It was an offshoot of what the west side of LA calls the Pacific Group. But this group was called Life's in Session. And it started by a married couple that left the Pacific Group that wanted to do things the way that the Pacific Group does, but they wanted to, believe it or not, have facial hair.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Like, you can't have facial hair in the Pacific Group?
Okay, so there's a lot of stories behind this. And Clancy, who started the Pacific Group,
Yeah.
really believed that people have a tendency to hide. They hide behind alcohol. They hide behind all kinds of things. And one of the things he is convinced that people hide behind their facial hair. So in your first year sobriety, this is where it goes weird. People think that you can never have facial hair if you're in the Pacific Group. That's not true. He just believed in your first year of sobriety, get rid of that. Let us see the real you so we can help you stay sober.
Gotcha. Is it still that way today? Do you know?
Well, I left the Pacific Group about 5 years ago because I moved.
Hmm.
Clancy passed away,
Yeah.
and I just moved on. I stay in touch with the Pacific Group. I sponsor a few guys in the Pacific Group. I have a ton of friends in the Pacific Group, but the facial hair is not as strict anymore. Clancy's gone.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, cool. Yeah, I like I said, I had no idea that was like. I'm assuming they like if some guy wants to keep his mustache or whatever, they don't kick you out of the group or whatever.
No,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay, it's just suggested and all that
it's
kind of.
just
Right.
suggested. Yes,
I gotcha.
and then if you're like in the movie industry or something like that, and you're known for your facial hair, Clancy's not against that.
Right.
You know.
Okay.
But one more time, Clancy's gone, so
Yeah.
I don't want to harp on what he did.
Yeah. I understand. Yeah, I get it. Okay. So somehow then you made it from Southern California to Buckeye, Arizona. What happened there? How did that happen?
Well, my story goes all over Southern California. I got sober in a place called Simi Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I stayed active over there. There was just 2 or 3 young people back in 1977, and 2 of the 3 were in my family. My sister also got sober at 15. My brother got sober at 16 or 17. I forgot.
Wow.
Right now I got 47 years. My sister has 47 years. Our stepmom just celebrated 50 years. And yesterday, my dad, if he was still alive, would have celebrated 51 years.
Wow.
So there's a lot of sobriety in our family. But anyways, I got sober in Simi Valley. I was very, very young. So my first year and a half was in Simi Valley. I was still underage, so I had to move to Oregon with my dad when he got a job transfer. I was up in Oregon for about a half a year, and then I joined the United States Navy. And I joined the Navy with 2 years of sobriety. I did 4 years in the Navy, and I came out with 6 years of sobriety. So it can be done. It was a little hard. It was a little difficult. So I was in San Diego for 4 years. Then I moved back to the LA area. I stayed in LA for 35 years or whatever it was until I moved to La Quinta, which is in the same valley as Palm Springs.
Mm.
I was there for about 4 years. And then a year ago, I moved to Arizona.
Gotcha. Wow, you have been around. So, I know Carl had mentioned to me that. Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I want to say this. I know we had been going back and forth, and I know there was a chance you were not going to be able to make this call today, and I was fine with that. You said, I just want to know about your health. How is your health doing? Are you okay?
My health is poor. Like I'm winded already from this conversation. On the 25th, which is a little more than a week from now, they're going to put in 3 more stents and they're going to replace 2 stents in my heart. And then a year and 10 months ago, I had an open heart surgery where they replaced a valve, fixed another valve, and replaced a whole root system. So there's been a lot. And then 6 years before that, I had multiple heart attacks and had 3 stents put in Santa Monica.
Wow.
So I've had issues with my heart, and we think it's related to a boat accident I was in the Navy. Nobody knows exactly where to point the finger because my family doesn't have heart disease issues.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know what. My root system that they replace is called the Bintel aortic root replacement. I guess I was born with it.
Wow. Well, good luck in your surgery next week. And, you know, I hope we make it through. I would feel really bad during this episode.
Yeah.
Something
The worst happened.
Yeah. So, now that I'm thinking of it, so I guess the decision point would be for me, okay, well, so let me put it this way. If we got a quarter of way through the episode and your demise came upon us, I don't think I would publish it. If we got 50% of the way through, I think I would have to think about it. And if we got 75% of the way through, I would definitely publish it and just say, hey, listen, just
His
keep.
last talk.
Okay. So Carl told me you were recently at the International in what was that, Vancouver, I think?
Vancouver.
Yeah, Vancouver. And you gave like a talk there, or take me through that. He said to make sure to ask you about that.
Okay, first of all, the whole process was fascinating because how do you get asked to speak at an international conference? And there's a lot of people that would be absolutely petrified to speak at an international conference, but then there's a handful of people that would look at it as such a big privilege. So the process was I was called by the General Service Office in New York, a gentleman over there by the name of Patrick, who is in charge of getting all the speakers. And he says, your name was referred to us. We would like to throw you on the table, was his exact word. So I visualized this foldable table from Office Max or Office Depot, and they threw a bunch of names on there on pieces of paper. And my name was one of those names because they had to fulfill hundreds of slots. And then so this whole process is about 3 or 4 months long. So a little while later, he calls me up and he says, okay, yeah, we do want to use you as a group facilitator. What is it? What do they call it? Not a group.
Yeah, like a panel discussion.
There we go, a panel leader.
Yeah.
So we want to use you as a panel leader. I went, okay, I'm just honored that you guys even asked. Because out of the millions of people in AA, only 100 or 160 get asked to do this every 5 years. So I said, okay. And then they sent me an email confirming me and that they are going to give me a slot on Saturday at 1:00 to 2:30. And my panel was going to be on prayer meditation. And I went, okay, that's cool. But then about a month before the conference went down, they called me up again and they said, look, we had somebody back out on Sunday at the closing meeting. Would you be willing to speak at the closing meeting? I said, I'm honored to do anything you guys ask me to do. And they said, well, we got one question. Are you going to freeze in front of 34,000 people? And I said, how would I know that? I never spoke in front of 34,000 people. So I said, I don't believe I will. I've literally spoken all over the world and I'm not allergic to it. So they gave me that slot. So the closing speaker was actually a panel of 3 people, all getting 20 minutes each to consume an hour-long meeting. Now, there was some handing out of the big deal was at this specific meeting, they handed out the 43rd millionth copy of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Mm.
They handed out that to somebody who's in the hospital and institution arena. It was a warden from some state. So they handed that out to him. They did a couple announcements, and then they threw us 3 people up on the stage. I was the first of the 3. And it was a circular stage in the middle of a coliseum. 34,000 people was a lot of faces. The floor was covered with chairs and people, and there were people in all the stands except for the top tier. But yeah, you got 20 minutes to tell your story. And on this stage in the middle of the Coliseum, the arena, whatever you want to call it, was an oval-shaped stage, and they put 4 podiums, 4 lecterns to be exact. And they asked us, which lectern do you want to stand at? And so I picked my lectern. I was the first one up. All 3 of us didn't know each other. There was me. There was a guy from the East Coast. And there is a lady, ironically, also from Arizona. And what got me into this panel is they said that they heard a couple of my talks. So that's why they chose me out of all the people leading panels to fulfill that spot that somebody backed out of.
Oh, wow. Very cool. And so, can you give me kind of a little preview or whatever of your talk? I mean, what did you talk about during that time?
Well, because like I said, I've talked many places. Usually when you talk at a big event like this, you get a whole hour and you get to tell your whole story in an hour. Well, when you get dwindled down to 20 minutes, you got to cut out some of the BS, if you will. Some of the parts of the story that really don't amount to anything. So I just really like bullet pointed all my story, and people like to hear that you can go through a lot of things and stay sober.
Yeah.
That's my niche. That's my niche. Some people are very humorous. Some people know the 12 steps. Some people know the 12 traditions. Some people know the big book. My story is that I've gone through a lot. I mean, a lot. And I've stayed sober. So they like to hear stories about when I joined the Navy, because that was an interesting time. I was in the Navy from 79 to 1983. And I went to 10 different countries. And every country that I went to, John, I knew that I could call up the GSO. This is the 70s and 80s, you got to remember. So there's no cell phones, there's no answering machines. You just dial somebody and it rings and rings and rings until they pick up, or eventually it just goes blank. So I would call up the GSO no matter what country I went to. Singapore, Australia, Hong Kong, Japan, all these places. And I would say, look, my name's Marty. I'm an alcoholic and I'm in Singapore. And the GSO in New York would always give me a name and a phone number that I can call. So I'd call that name and phone number and say, hey, I'm Marty. I'm with the 7th Fleet. I'm in town for 4 days. Is there a meeting that I can go to? And they would either pick me up or they would guide me to a meeting. Now, the fascinating part about that whole little story is I was in Bahrain. Bahrain's right next to Iran.
I didn't know about that.
It's in the Persian Gulf.
Okay.
And I went to this. It's a Muslim country. It's 1980. Alcohol is illegal in that country. And if you get caught underneath an alcohol offense in a Muslim country, and this is a story that they like to hear, John, is that they will cut off your right hand if you get caught with an alcohol offense.
Wow.
And that is sentencing you to death, because the Muslim belief is so strong, they eat with their right hand only. They will not use their left hand because the left hand is used for the restroom only.
Yeah.
So if they cut off your right hand, they're pretty much sentencing you to death, because you're going to starve to death, because you will not be able to eat because your left hand is used for the bathroom. So I went to a meeting there, and because it's so illegal back in the day, they had to hold their AA meeting every 9th day. So the government could never figure out which day of the week AA was held. And then they held the underground. They held it in the basement of the American Red Cross building. And this guy set up this event because ironically, the time that I was in Bahrain, one of my nights fell on this night that they're holding the meeting. And we had to meet on the curb of the American Red Cross, pretend like we don't know each other because the government might be watching us. Pretend like we don't know each other. He was going to run down these stairs, open the door, run inside the building, and slam the door behind him. He says, then you got to give him anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute, and then you could do the same. So I had to run into this meeting, slam the door behind me like we were I don't know, Jason Bourne or something, you know? And that's how I went to a meeting in Iran, and people love to hear that story.
Like you're Jason Bourne.
Yeah. It was like top secret stuff, you know? 'Cause the truth is if we got caught, we'd all be arrested.
Right.
You
Wow.
imagine getting arrested for going to an AA meeting?
Oh, wow. Okay, so tell me a little bit about your family. So you said everybody got sober young, it sounds like. How did that all occur? And how did you get sober so young?
Well, we gotta give credit to God, but how it originally happened is my dad got sober in 1974. And in '74, our family was not, tight. We all hated each other. Between me and my sister, who's older than me, there's a year and a half, and between my sister and my brother, there's a year and a half. So we were perfectly lined up like that, and we used to fight all the time. And we're talking closed fists, bloody
Oh
nose,
my
black
goodness.
eye type of fighting, and my dad was also a drunk. Now, another fascinating part of my story is that our mother lost custody of all of us kids back in the '60s. And it was not common for the female to lose custody of the children back in the '60s. It's very uncommon. And my
Mhm.
mom lost custody because she was a bad drunk. And I already told you my dad's sober. So both of my parents are drunks. But my dad ended up getting a job as a probation officer in San Bernardino, California. And one of his tasks in San Bernardino Probation Department was to handle the DUI classes, driving under the influence. So he was sentencing all of his clients to this thing called AA. So he thought he would just go get a little product knowledge, if you will. So he went to an AA meeting, and I'm not kidding you, something was said at that meeting that he took personally and directly towards himself, and he got sober.
Wow.
Now, the cool thing is that my dad never pushed AA onto any one of us kids. We just sort of followed his lead. Now, he did a little bit of tough love and a little directing. My sister OD'd on Southern Comfort one night. They took her to Riverside County Hospital because we're living in Riverside. And when she got out, my dad gave her the ultimatum. You either go to AA or you go to AA. So my sister ended up going to AA. Then my brother, a few months after that, was sentenced to juvenile hall for driving under the influence felony car accident because there's a lot of damage. And when he got out of juvenile hall, he got the same ultimatum. You either join AA or you join AA. So now my dad, my sister, and my brother are all going to AA. I'm the last of the Mohicans trying to get drunk and trying to stay high with some means. And their influence rubbed off on me. And eventually I came around and I went to a meeting with them. I was 14 when I first went in. I continued smoking pot. And then after 99 days, I don't know why I remember this, John, but after 99 days, my sister walked to me. She says, "You know, you're not sober." I says, "Yes, I am. I have not had a drink for 99 days. She says, "In AA, we also don't smoke pot." I mean, what? That's the only way you guys are funny is if I'm high. And so she says, "No, if you want sobriety, you're going to have to quit smoking pot too." That's my sobriety date.
That's very interesting because you know that term is out there, California sober, right? And
Yeah, right.
you were in California. You were ahead of the game there.
I was California sober.
Wow, that is wild. So, okay, so I guess my question comes around. Nowadays, if you're 15 and you're trying to get sober, there's some sort of level of acceptance around that. And, it's not quite as, I guess, weird. But in 1979, like going to school, trying to stay sober? I mean, what was that like?
Oh, that was an interesting error because you're right. Nowadays it's more acceptable and there's rehabs everywhere. Insurance pays for this over and over and over again. 1977, when I got sober, there's rehabs, but it was only for the rich people.
Mm-hmm.
It was only the people that can afford it on top of their insurance payment. So there weren't too many rehabs in 1977. Now they were around. My family just couldn't afford it. So it was AA and AA only. And then I'm 15. That makes my sister 16, my brother 17. And we're the three teenage kids going to a lot of AA meetings in Simi Valley. And they did not take us seriously.
When
I
you
had
say they, are you talking about the people in AA?
Yeah, the old people.
Yeah.
Old people my age today.
Right. I get it.
These old people that are my age today would come up to us three kids and said, I spilt more than you ever drank.
Right.
That was sort of hurt, Or the one that bothered me a lot is, you're too young to be an alcoholic. However, I do need a babysitter. Are you willing to babysit my kids while I go? It's like, come on. But my sister, who has we'll call it an abrasive personality, also known as a BIT.
Right. I get it.
She always has these witty comebacks for anything. And so some old man in Simi Valley came up to her one too many times and said, I spilt more than you ever drank. And she snapped back at him, and I could hear it. She says, if you wouldn't have spilt so damn much, you would have got here at my age. And I went, oh, what a great comeback. And I wanted to say that to people so bad, but they quit saying it to all of us young people because of witty responses like that. Well, yeah, they didn't take us serious. I didn't get to go on 12-step calls. I imagine your audience knows what a 12-step call is.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, you just try to get to somebody into treatment. That's called a 12-step call. Back in the day, we used to show up with Snicker bars and orange juice because you need to pump people full of sugar that gets in the system real quick because they're going to DT off of alcohol.
Yeah.
And you'd show up with 2 or 3 people to do a 12-step call. Well, they wouldn't send any one of us kids on a 12-step call because we were underage. And back then in California, there was a curfew. You had to be in at 10 or 10:30. I forgot what it was. And so we didn't get any 12-step calls. So what me and my sister, my brother, and I think 2 other friends did is we started speaking at high schools. What we'd have to do is we'd have to go to a high school and we'd go to the principal or vice principal and say, look, my name's Marty. I'm an alcoholic. I've been sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm only 15. I'm in 10th grade. And I'd love to speak to a class, a couple classes, an assembly, whatever you want to do about alcoholism. And that was our 12-step calls. That was the way that we spread the message. And so the way that it worked out is the principal or vice principal would hand us over often to the home economic class. And I don't know why home economic. I don't know that answer. But that's what we did. And we were actually made fun of and humiliated in front of a lot of schools, in front of a lot of students that wanted nothing that we had to offer. We'd stand up and say, look, my name's Marty. I'm an alcoholic. I go to Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm only 15, so some of you folks are older than me. Some of you are younger than me. Just want to let you know that alcohol was tearing up my life, and I did something about it. Now, out of the hundreds of people we spoke to, only a couple people ended up coming up to us after our talk and saying, how? What'd you do? And we are able to help them. And like I said, out of the hundreds, I would say less than 5 people we helped get sober way back when.
Did they ever talk about, as opposed to them, what was going on at their home with their parents who were drinking?
Yes, often. And the other source of 12-step work was we had a lot of parents come up to us Part of the disease of alcoholism is denial. I don't have a problem. Our disease will tell us that we don't have a problem. We'll even die from it, saying that I don't have a problem with it. So we'd have a lot of parents come up to us and say, "Hey, can you talk to my kid? Can you talk to my kid? Can you talk to my kid?" And I don't know how many kids I talked to over the decades, but in early sobriety, I talked to a lot of kids that really, really didn't want to hear from me because it was their parents referring me to them.
Mm-hmm.
But I can only think of one in particular, one young girl that I ended up talking to. She liked what I had to say. She got sober. And I went, okay, so it does work.
Wow, you were really ahead of your time, Marty. I mean, I don't think there were probably too many 15-year-olds running around high schools in this country back in the late 70s and talking about AA. I mean, that's cutting edge right there.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And we didn't know that. We were just trying to keep sober ourselves.
Yeah. Wow. So, I know can you give me some, whatever you want to tell me about from 1977 up to today to 47 years sober? I know you've been through a lot. You've had a lot of experiences. What do you want to tell me about that time?
Well, there's quite a few things that we do for our own sobriety. One of the things is that we sponsor people. And usually when you become a sponsor, it's because you have something that you can offer to somebody else to help them stay sober. And you got some life experience. So needless to say, I didn't get a lot of sponsees in my first 4 years of sobriety. I got my first sponsor when I was 4.5 years sober. I was in the Navy. And you think about it, 4.5 years sober, and you get sober at 15, that means I was only 19 and a half years old.
Hmm.
And I'm going to guess, John, you and I have both been 19-year-old men before.
Yes.
And we don't have a ton of good advice to help a newcomer out. In early sobriety, if some dude would have came up to me and said, "Hey, will you be my sponsor?" And I say, "Yeah." And then they want to start talking to me about their relationship or their work. I would say, get rid of that girl. There's plenty of fish in the sea. That's not good advice. Or I'm having trouble at work. Well, quit your job. Walk off. There's plenty of jobs out there.
Right.
So we don't have a lot of good advice. It wasn't until I was 4 years sober, 19 years old, on my own in the United States Navy. And I got my very first sponsee. And not knowing about sponsorship, I did a couple bad things. I made a couple wrong decisions. This very first guy, I let him use my Camaro. I had a Camaro back in the day. It was my dream car because I was getting that sailor's pay. They will finance anybody that's in the military because of the regular paychecks that you get. And this guy asked to borrow my car one night. And because I didn't have any boundaries, because I didn't know any better, I let him use my car. And that night when he was supposed to return my car, he never showed up. And then somebody knocked on my door at 1:30 in the morning and says, "Hey, aren't you the guy that owns that blue Camaro?" I went, "Yes." He says, "Well, it's in downtown San Diego, causing a big scene." My very first sponsee decided to go out and drink the night I loaned him my car. And he did a strong arm robbery at a store.
Oh.
Fleeing from the accident. This is where my Camaro got in a big old scene in downtown San Diego as he went on a high-speed chase with police officers that are trying to catch him. Nowadays, you're put on TV and they film you the whole time. Back then, they didn't. Well, he ran a red light in my car, hit an oncoming police officer on his motorcycle. The police officer was ejected from his bike, landed on another moving vehicle, and was killed instantly.
Oh.
So now all of a sudden, my car is being held as evidence in a manslaughter case,
Boy.
possibly first-degree murder. So that's just my first sponsee. I sponsor 15, 20 guys here in the United States, and I don't make those decisions anymore.
Right.
I don't make those bad mistakes anymore. So a lot of my life is just a big old learning curve
Yeah.
because I didn't get to drink over some of this stuff. I chose not to drink. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
I could have drank over all of this.
Yeah.
When that guy was locked up in San Diego jail before they sentenced him, he even had the audacity to somehow get a hold of me and say, "Will you come visit me in jail?" And I went, "Why? I mean, you ruined my car." And because back then insurance wasn't mandatory, I didn't have insurance on that car. I had to pay for storage fee while it was held as evidence.
Oh.
The family, the cop ended up trying to sue me because I was the rightful owner of the car
Ooh.
for a wrongful death. I mean, it really got ugly, but the point is I've always stayed sober, and people like to hear the stories that are really radical, that somehow you stayed sober. And more specifically, what did you do?
Right.
And I don't care what story I'm talking to you about or talking to anybody about. What I've always done when I get in trouble, when life comes down hard on Marty, what Marty does is Marty goes back to AA full force. Sometimes I'll cut down to 3 or 4 meetings a week, but when something like this happens to me, I go back up to 10 to 14 meetings a week, and I just go to a lot of meetings and get some of that good mojo rubbed off on me one more time. But they like to hear those stories, The stories are real. The stories
Yeah.
people are going, "Yeah, that happened to me, but I drank." Storytelling is big because I know a lot of people with stories better than mine. But if you don't know how to tell your story, you're not going to do a lot of speaking. Like my sponsor, Carl, who you've met a few times,
Yeah.
I think he's one of the best storytellers around.
Mm-hmm.
And he conveys that. And what makes a good story is if you can turn that horrific event around and sort of laugh and make fun of it yourself. It
Yeah.
lightens it up.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let me ask you this then to kind of wind us down. When you think about people out there that are listening to this, and you're going to have a lot of folks all over the world, and some of them are considering AA, some of them have, or sober curious. And you think about your experience, strength, and hope, and what you would share to kind of sum it up about your time in Alcoholics Anonymous. What comes to mind for you, sir?
I would say what comes to mind is give it a shot. Give AA a shot. I was told in early sobriety that any man, when you think about it, the guy that told me I was 15 years old, this is a physically bigger, older man. And he looked at me and says, "Marty, any man could take a drink, but it's going to be a real man. It's going to take a real man that can go through life without ever picking up that first drink."
Mm-hmm.
And he was so right because I have so many life events that justifies a drink. So my advice, my attitude is just give AA a shot. If it doesn't work out, go back to drinking again. But if you can't go 30 days without picking up a drink while you're attending AA, you might have a problem with alcohol.
Yeah, and as we always say, right, we'll refund your misery.
Yep, exactly.
No worries. And that's even Bill Wilson wrote about that in the big book. He says, if you're not really sure what's going on, just step over to the bar, right? Have a big time.
Yeah.
And we hope that people don't have to. The challenge is that, as you know, sometimes people don't make it back, and that's the Russian roulette that you're playing with when you go back out there, if you know you have an issue.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you one more story,
Yeah.
John, and I hate to interrupt you, but it's a story that I often in my talk with because this is as real as it got for me. I left the Navy. I went back to LA. I started going to meetings up there. I met a girl in AA. We ended up getting married. We ended up having 2 kids together, and we moved to a place called Temecula, which was more affordable for the 2 of us. And that's where we chose to raise our 2 kids. And then we're just cruising along life. I ended up having a counseling center that I bought from my dad, and I was doing really, really good. I was making the big bucks. I had 3 locations, 27 employees, over $1 million a year company. I was doing really, really good. And I had long-term sobriety. I've been in this long-term marriage with 2 kids, believe it or not, 2 dogs and 2 cats. We had the whole American dream going on. And then I have what I call my week from hell. And I stayed sober through this week from hell. And how it went down, John, is on Monday, my son, who I love a lot today, who's currently 33 years old. My son at the age of 17 was jumped and beaten so badly that he needed facial reconstructive surgery. That was on Monday. On Tuesday, I found out I was going to be losing an office building I bought for the family business. Wednesday, I found out the hard way that my office manager was stealing my money and not making my payroll employee tax payments. So they charged me with 2 felony counts of tax evasion. Thursday, I found out we're going to be losing the house that we've been living in for 12 years. And on Friday, my sober wife announced a divorce after 18 and a half years. So that's just one hell of a week. And I usually end my story talking about that week from hell because I want to convey the message that you can go through anything. Each one of those events was enough for somebody to pick up a drink. And I went through 5 of them, back to back to back to back. And then shortly after that, in the next coming weeks, I also had to put down a dog. My sponsor of 17 years passed away. A lot of things happened real quick. And I never picked up a drink. I got reactivated in AA. I started doing a lot of prayer meditation. I did a little bit of outside service help to help me out. I picked up a mantra. I did some more prayer meditation. I got closer to God. And that's how I survived that, because all that went down when I was 31 years sober. And I could have easily went out. But I chose not to, and here I am. I'm still here.
You're still here, and I'm grateful that you are still here. And I want to tell you also that I really appreciate, I know, Marty, I don't think you had a microphone before this, but you went out and at my request, I always ask people, do you get a microphone or some wired earbuds, and I think you went out and got that microphone, and I'm very appreciative of that you did that. Thank you very much, sir.
Well, here's the deal. I learned that in AA too. I learned just to take advice. I have Bluetooth microphone and earbuds. But in your email, you say, please do not use Bluetooth. Now, the ego of the little rebellious guy and Marty wanted to say, screw you, John. My earbuds work great. But I went, no, what have I learned in AA? I've learned in AA that John's asking this for a reason.
There is a reason. I've had a lot of...
To be another reason why somebody's got to ask for a wired headset. Yeah, I went out and bought this, and as you and I both know, we have a hard time getting my camera going. So.
Yeah. That's okay. We have, but you know what? It's interesting though. I tell people this all the time, is that I can tell a lot about an individual when we start having technical issues getting live, about how they handle it, and you handled it like a champ, Marty. And
oh, you did too.
Well, hopefully. All right. Well, Marty, I always ended up with a page 164 from the Big Book. And by the way, I'm so glad that you made it all the way through this entire episode. That makes me very happy. Uh, it says, abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us, like me and Marty S, as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Once again, Marty, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Amen, John. Thanks for having me. You have a good weekend.
You too. Bye-bye, brother. Thank you, thank you, thank you again, Mr. Marty S. It was a pleasure spending time with you. Now, remember, folks, if you're out there listening to this, we do not want you sharing your toothbrush or your STD, but we would love for you to pause this episode and share it with another, or with not another. Well, it could be another. Who knows if you're sharing it twice? We would love for you to pause and share this with a friend or family member, that episode. It may be just what they need today. And now, on to a little bit of listener feedback. Charles writes in. Charles says, episode 421. He says, I'm listening and going to sleep. Thank you for your service, John, a fellow alcoholic in Perth, Western Australia. Well, thank you, mate. We are so glad you wrote in. Episode number 421 is Mr. David G. I think that one was called A Curious Mental Twist. And David would be fantastic to go to sleep to. I'm glad you were able to hear his episode and go to sleep at the same time. And I'm just, like I said, I said this on the beginning. I love to hear what people are doing when they're listening to the episodes. It just, I don't know, puts a little extra something in my step. What do you call it? Like lifts you up, a little perk. No, not perk. I don't know the word right now, but you know what I'm saying. Little hop in my giddy up, I guess is how you'd phrase it. But anyway, thanks for writing in, Charles from Western Australia. So good to hear from you. Rusty writes in, our friend Rusty. Now, this comes in via the snail mail division. And let me remind you, for those of you who would like to write in and you want to write in an actual letter, either you like that method or you're unable to write an email or something like that, and you just want to write a letter, our friend Mike in Tempe, Arizona, monitors the Sober Speak P.O. Box, and it's Sober Speak, and this is the address, Sober Speak, 1962 East Apache Boulevard, P.O. Box 7925, Tempe, Arizona, 85281. And Mike picks up, I'm just so grateful for Mike and what he does. Not only does he pick up letters there, he also monitors the various folks that we have who are incarcerated that write in and they want a little bit of communication back and forth, and he helps them with the 12 steps. He does all kinds of things, and I'm so grateful for Mike. By the way, if you need to get in touch with me, I'm at John, JOHN, at soberspeak.com. We would love to hear from you. But anyway, Rusty writes in via Mike at the snail mail division, and he says, and I think he's talking to me here, my dear brother from another AA mother. I truly enjoyed episode 421 with David G. There's David G again. He says, when you two addressed the mammoth efforts involved in finding a new meeting space and then making that necessary and quick move, it imparted experience, strength, and hope. Trust me, I know that knowledge and wisdom will be very useful to others on down the line. Thank you, Mr. Rusty. He also says, David also let everyone know about a step study he plans to conduct. Yes, that's actually, as I'm recording this, that is in full swing, which hopefully your Sober Speak will be able to, record and later rebroadcast. Was not able to do that, but that's an interesting idea. Maybe we could do that next year. You got me thinking there, Rusty. You got me thinking. We were also thinking about doing it via like a live stream, Zoom. We could set that up. It just takes planning and thinking this through. And unfortunately, it's a little too late this year, but Rusty, hopefully we'll remember next year. Anyway, I pray that works out because I plan on utilizing it within my AA group inside of this prison. So please keep us posted on its progression. Darn. Anyway, Rusty goes on. Also, David said he had several sober living houses. I was wondering if he accepted old codgers like me. Well, I know he does. After decades of incarceration and prison, but very active in recovery with long-term sobriety. If so, and addresses are available, can you email them to Mike M. so he can squirrel them away back to my tablet? I asked because I come up for my first parole interview after serving 30 flat years on February 20th of 2026. Well, you're in my prayers, Rusty. Anyway, and he says, I truly wish to stay solid in 12-step recovery and service work. So, on that part right there, I replied, I copied Mike. When I say I replied, I copied David on it. I'll get out of the middle and let you all talk about that. But David has, excuse me, Mike has David's email, and I'm sure he can fill you in on that. But then anyway, he says, once again, my daily prayers go toward your princess. Oh, my girl is not doing well. Well, she's doing much better. It's just taking a lot of doctor's visits to kind of get to the bottom of all that. But thank you, Rusty, as well as your family and your podcast. Hasta la vista, mi amigo. Thank you, Rusty. And anyway, he says, Rusty R. Cooled off in Abilene, Texas. So thank you so much for writing in, Rusty. I sure do appreciate it, my friend. Thanks for listening in, and may you have a blessed and sober day when you are listening to this. God bless you, my friend. Lisa writes in, and the subject line is Jeff V, episode number 279. She says, hello. Would you be able to provide me with Jeff's contact information? I am a speaker coordinator for 12-step meetings in Pleasant Hill, California, and we would love him to come speak for us. Thank you so much, Lisa H. Well, Lisa, as you know, I copied you on, I replied, copied you, I got you in touch with Jeff V, and I'll let you guys take it from there. He is a wonderful speaker, and I hope you're able to get in touch with him and book him. You know, he has time and all that sort of stuff. You know, something I've been wanting to do lately, if anyone's out there, so, you know, I have people who write me all the time and they want me to, you know, get them in touch with speakers, and I'm more than happy to do such. But I'm thinking about like what Rusty just said there. You know, I would be willing to come to a conference if you're out there and you're listening, and possibly record like somebody doing the steps, so we could get this out there on the airways via the podcast. Because you, just so you know, you have two audiences you have to think about if you're out there and you're coordinating something like this. You have the audience that is actually there at the facility, 100, 200, 300 people, however many it is, right? But then if you record that and put it on a podcast, I mean, you can 10-fold, 20, 30-fold that easy, depending on how many people there are in that audience. So anyway, just something to think about if you're out there and you're listening. All right, everybody, that right there is another episode of Sober Speak in the Books. As I always say, keep coming back. It works if you work it. I take this 1 week at a time. I hope to be back next week. You never can tell. May God bless you and keep you until then. Sober on.